feel free to briefly introduce yourself in the chat room as well, your institution, your name, and where you are joining us from. Thank you so much for joining in. Okay, pleasure to have you all with us this morning as we launch. So good morning, everyone. Welcome once again. Good morning, distinguished guests, speakers, partners, and participants. My name is Ebem Etim. I am the lead of the Creative Innovation Practice here at ICT Africa, and it's our utmost pleasure to have you with us this morning. On behalf of ICT Africa and the National Universities Commission, I warmly welcome you to the official launch of the States of Innovation and Entrepreneurship in Nigerian Higher Education Institutions report. Thank you for joining us for this very important conversation. Today's session brings together stakeholders like yourself from higher education, government, development organizations, the private sector, and the wider innovation ecosystem to reflect on the current state of innovation and entrepreneurship within Nigerian HEIs, and importantly, what needs to happen next. We have a 1-hour program for today, so we'll keep each contribution focused and practical as we go along. Before we do begin, just a few quick housekeeping notes to make sure that we are all aligned. So firstly, we'd really appreciate if you could keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking. You can use the chat or the Q&A function for questions and contributions as we go along. And in the case where you do experience any technical difficulty, please use the chat to alert the technical team so you could be supported as well. And then we are pleased to have several distinguished guests with us today. I will briefly introduce them as we go along the flow of today's event. But firstly, let us begin with the keynote remark. So we would like to invite
Would like to invite the representative of the Executive Secretary of the National University Commission, in person of Dr. Mrs. Esther. Thank you very much, ma'am. You can come.
Okay. Good morning, distinguished guests present here. We know that today is the official launch of the State of Innovation and Entrepreneurship in Nigerian Higher Education Institution report by the ICT in collaboration with National Universities Commission. This is the address of the Executive Secretary. He's unavoidably absent here, and he asked me to tender his apologies. His address. Distinguished guests, representatives of our development partners, vice chancellors and leaders of Nigeria higher education institutions, colleagues from the National Universities Commission, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to join you this morning for the launch of the State of Innovation and Entrepreneurship in Nigeria Higher Education Institutions reports, jointly published by the National Universities Commission and ICT Africa. This report is significant as it brings evidence to a conversation that is central to the future of higher education institutions. Having revealed progress made, existing gaps, and further work required for institutions to contribute meaningfully to innovation, enterprise development, and national development. Over the years, entrepreneurship education has become an integral part of university education in Nigeria, as many institutions have established entrepreneurship centers, innovation hubs, and other structures to aid students and faculty. These efforts are deliberate results of policy direction, institutional efforts, and the commitment of government, academia, and the industries for national development. The National Universities Commission has continued to provide leadership through policy guidance, quality assurance, curriculum reforms, and regulatory support to ensure the economic transformation of Nigeria. The transition from the benchmark minimum academic standard to the core curriculum and minimum academic standards, CCMAS, is an effort geared towards a responsive entrepreneurship education. This report is a reminder that structures are not sufficient without the qualified human resources to drive the centers. An established technology transfer office is critical to support students, faculties, industries, and the wider entrepreneurship ecosystem. This event will strengthen the link between research and industry, innovation hubs to become connected to teaching, research, and enterprise development, and improving the capacity of institutions to translate ideas into products. A report of this nature gives us a clearer picture of the current state of the entrepreneurship ecosystem that enables institutions to develop tangible solutions. The Higher Education Innovation Working Group is vital as it provides a platform for continued engagement, learning, and collaboration among institutions, government, industry, development partners, and other stakeholders. However, the challenges cannot be addressed by only one institution, but a collaborative effort by all stakeholders. This measure of success will be determined by the employability of graduates produced, relevance of research outcomes, collaboration between industries and institutions. I therefore commend ICT Africa for the initiative of producing this report and encouraging vice chancellors, policymakers, industry players, development partners, and all stakeholders here present to utilize the findings and recommendations of this report for a robust entrepreneurship education. The National Universities Commission will continue to support meaningful collaborations that will add value to the Nigerian university system. I thank you all for your attention and wish us all participants a fruitful deliberations. Long live Nigeria, long live Africa, and long live the National Universities Commission and collaboration with ICT. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Essa. Thank you so much for that important perspective and for highlighting the role that policy and regulation can play in creating an enabling environment for innovation and entrepreneurship across IHIs. We'll now move to the opening remarks and hear from my colleague. I would now like to invite Omotayo Abraham, the HI Innovation Lead and Associate Director at ICT Africa, to share the purpose of this report and its relevance to strengthening innovation and entrepreneurship across Nigerian HIs. Omotayo, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Distinguished Executive Secretary of the National University Commission, ably represented by Dr. Esther Maker and the entire executive leadership of the National University Commission, representative of government agencies across Nigeria, development partners here present, civil society organizations, technical and private sector partners, lecturers, and our distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We're excited to have you join us on this launch of the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Landscape within Higher Education Institutions in Nigeria report. This report was published with the National Universities Commission with the hope of providing a baseline to understand what currently exists within higher education institutions, what is being done, and what exactly can be improved, so that all stakeholders from development organizations, the private sectors, the regulatory organizations as well, can continue to have conversations, use the data to also forge the programming, and eventually we can also have young people come out of our institutions who are able to do great work and solve the problems and challenges that we face as a continent and also as a country. Africa is home to the world's youngest population, with over 40% of its people under the age of 15. Consequently, the future of the continent and Nigeria in particular hinges on how effectively its young people are engaged and equipped for the job market. It's therefore important that as institutions such as the universities, polytechnics, monotechnics, innovation enterprise institutions, and TVET centers continue to provide support to young people in terms of learning and research. A significant opportunity also exists to foster sustainable economic growth. This is possible when institutions build on existing work, like the CCMAS by the National University Commission, such that our institutions are more than just places of learning. They are now vital engines for generating new ideas. They are also places where our researches are conducted to meet not just local needs but also global needs. And we are also able to drive commercialization from the researches that have already been conducted. The end goal is to be able to not just have graduates who are job ready, but also graduates who are able to create jobs and employ Nigerians and also global talent to build this great country of ours, Nigeria. At the end of this report, the goal is not just to have another report that is lying on the shelf. Our expectation and our desire alongside the NUC is for stakeholders to look at the insights from this report and for it to be used to guide future programming where our HEIs are able to leverage the demographic advantage that we already have as a country, the human capital strengths that we also have in terms of our skilled potentials across our many institutions, from public to private, and across all the higher education strata, to be able to produce job-ready graduates, bold innovators, and dynamic job creators, equipped to solve our most pressing societal challenges. At ICT Africa Higher Education Innovation Practice, we are more than ready to continue to support and collaborate with partners to ensure that the Nigeria that we desire comes to reality, and particularly that higher education institutions, continue to support young people to achieve the goal that the Federal Ministry of Education desires for them. Once again, thank you all for being here, and thank you to the National Universities Commission as well for working with the ICT Africa team to bring these reports to life. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you very much, Omataya. We will now move towards the central moment of today's event, the presentation and launch of the State of Innovation and Entrepreneurship in Nigerian Higher Education Institutions report. I'll now invite Ayomide Omotosho, a senior research and project coordinator here at ICT Africa, who was closely involved in the research, to take us through the key findings and recommendations from the report. Ayomide, over to you.
Thank you so much, for the introduction. And standing on existing protocol, I welcome you all to the launch of this report. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. For this presentation, I'm going to be taking you through the background and context, the methodology, key findings, and then the recommendations. What we set to achieve when we were developing this report was to find out the current state of entrepreneurship, the drivers, the barriers, review how research outputs are being commercialized, and also benchmark institutional models and the way forward. Next slide, please. We know that universities no longer only award degrees. Across the world, HEIs are now being involved in innovation and enterprise. And the good thing is that African institutions are not importing those models. We are building our own, and Nigeria is not left behind. Next slide, please. Nigeria is not behind. policy, which was introduced in 2006 by the National University Commission. We also have other policies, such as the MSTI, and recently, in
Hello,
2022,
Ayomide.
the NEC
Hello,
replaced the
Ayomide. Apologies. Can you retake the slide again? We missed you for a few seconds.
Okay, so I was saying that the good thing is that Nigeria is not left behind in HCI is actually contributing to enterprise and innovation across the world. In 2006, the entrepreneurship education policy was introduced by NUC in Nigeria. Also in 2022, the BMAS has been replaced by the CCMAS that introduced innovation policies like Nigeria Startup Act, the NIPPS, the Student Venture Capital Grants, and the EIBC program. Next slide, please. In terms of the methodology for this report, we employed a mixed methods approach where we had survey inside Innovation Hub. We also had key informant interviews and focus group discussions with industry leaders, government representative, the private sector, and HR representative. In terms of our institutional sampling, we had 20 institutions across universities, polytechnics, colleges of education across Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones. And we would like to state that the findings of this report are indicative of the patterns and challenges that we found and are not generalizable to institutions across the country. Next slide, please. Now to the key findings, the main reason why we are here today. Next slide, please. In terms of entrepreneurship education in Nigerian HAIs, we found out that almost all institutions are teaching entrepreneurship as a course of study. And other ways in which entrepreneurship is being taught involves having entrepreneurship, innovation or career centers. Students are creating clubs and societies. There are also hackathons program, SciWest and internships, and also institutions coming up with business incubation and acceleration program. What we saw that needs to be strengthened is that entrepreneurship education needs to be taught more with case studies, capstone projects, and problem-based learning so that students can grasp the concepts
Hi, Ayomide. Hi, Ayomide.
very easily.
Hello, Ayomide.
Next
Can you hear me?
slide, please.
Hello, Ayomide. Please confirm if you can hear me.
Hi, MM, I can hear you.
Okay, all right. I would like to ask if you can leave the meeting and rejoin because of your network.
Okay, let me do that.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Mobolaji, over to you.
Okay, so while I'm the try and join back, I would like to go to the next thing we saw during the course of this research work. So in terms of research in Nigerian higher education, we realized that the major barrier to a lot of research activity happening within the institution is inadequate research funding. And also, we also realized that a lot of the people we spoke to also mentioned weak industry partnership, particularly because we understand the need for the triple helix model to be able to ensure that and research is being commercialized on a large scale. Also, we also realize that in some cases, inefficient or insupportive institutional leadership commitment is also a major challenge in that sense. I will then go to the next slide. Also on the research front, we then looked at innovation hubs in Nigeria HAIs. We realized that about 70% of the institutions have an innovation hub, and they all recognize it as as an important tool or infrastructure now to bridge idea to market-ready products. Also, many of these hubs are largely dependent on a bit of the school or institutional curriculum, as it were. And also, we also realized that they are also heavily dependent on TED fund capital in that sense. Also, we realized that most institutions have incubated less than five student enterprise, and only about 20% of them have have passed the mark of 20, more than 20 enterprise in that sense. Also central to this is also that we realized that no institution reported a central register or dashboard for incubated ventures to be able to ensure that we are able to track the impact of or the evidence of these ventures as the case might be. And I will go to the next slide. On technology transfer in Nigeria HAIs, we realized that three key things were clear. We realized that they are segregated into three sectors. First is the emerging typography. These are largely people with little capacity in terms of technology transfer efforts, and we have institutions that are quite mature in that sense. Aside from that, we also have very fully operational institutions that have fully functional technology transfer offices within their institutions. I would then move to the next thing, which is a lot of effort is concentrated on commercialization within these institutions, with only about 45% having IP policies and just about 30% of the institutions we spoke with having formal invention disclosure process in place. Also, most innovations stall at conceptualization stage, and no institution reported structural revenue for licensing or spin-off equity in that case. I would like to confirm if IMD is back. And
You can go ahead, please.
all right. Also, it's also important that we also saw a very close similarity between universities and polytechnic, with about 60% of them having TTOs, and also within the polytechnics, about one of every two polytechnic has a TTO in place. Regarding funding and partnership in Nigerian HAIs, we categorized it into four sources of funding. First is the government, and we realized that TED fund is the biggest enabler of innovation or entrepreneurship activities within our institution in Nigeria. And also, the funding is also very depending on the capacity of such institution. Also, we realized that just about 40% of the institution have partnership with international development partners in order to mobilize funds for the work they do within their innovation space. Also, we also realized that none of the institution reported sustained private capital in terms of incubation program, particularly that we realized that a lot of fund comes in from the diaspora into innovative activities or innovative programs in Nigeria, as it were. But just none of the institution reported a sustained pipeline as to getting private capital in that sense. Moving quickly to the recommendation. Also for the recommendation, we broke the recommendation to four critical partners in this. One is the HAIs, and we think that top of the list on what the HAIs should do would be the institutionalization of industry partnership, because we believe that this would greatly help the output of in terms of research, in terms of funding, and in terms of general enabling environment for entrepreneurship, as it were. Also, we also admonish that HIs are able to strengthen their capacity in experiential learning, and also we also call for institutional leadership to ensure that there are stronger TTOs and better IP systems in place. For industry players, we think that having fund prototypes in terms of outcome-based funds or also partnership in terms of how to fund research is very important in terms of the research work that needs to be done, and industry needs to play that part. Also, we also believe that industry also has to co-design and co-create research and mentor prototypes for higher education institutions to ensure that there is proper pathways to commercializing research work and research and innovation activities within those institutions. On the government and on the government front, we truly believe that a lot of the activities or a lot of the regulations should focus more on an outcome-based regulation and funding model, and this needs to properly strengthen the capacity of institutions. Also, is enabling policy for private sector individuals to be able to play their own part with higher education institutions across board. Uh, very moving quickly to development partners. One important thing that came out strongly while we were speaking with institutions is funding. I would believe that development partners can help mobilize catalytic fundings, blended finance models, and other funding models that will strengthen innovation work within higher education institutions in Nigeria. Also, we believe that institutional capacity building through technical assistance and other related activity would also go a long way in strengthening the capacity of institutions. And above all, we also believe that technology transfer, global market and knowledge linkage is important. It's an important pathway for development partners to play in this. Thank you so much. I will then pass the mic back to my colleague, Emen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mobolaji and Ayomide, for that insightful presentation. It's really great for us to see a snippet into the great work that we do at ICT Africa. An applause for the entire research team and our various collaborators that made this possible. And we look forward to even doing much greater work from this report, as well as this is only the beginning, as we stated earlier. So now we'll move on to our stakeholder panel. But just to say, please feel free to share in the chat your comments, your insights, contributions, questions regarding the report within the chat. We are definitely open to conversations. This is just preliminary because after the stakeholder panel, we do have an open session for actual conversation within the room before we close the session. So please feel free to share your insights, comments, questions, clarifications in the chat room. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we'll move into our stakeholder panel, where we'll explore what all these findings mean for the entire ecosystem. What does this mean for our higher education and innovation industry? We're pleased to introduce to you three distinguished voices, each bringing a different perspective to the conversation. As you saw in the last recommendation slide, we have the HEIs, we have the development partners, we have the government representatives as well, and then we have global education perspective. So firstly, we have Mr. Etom Ofem, the Regional Higher Education Insights Lead of Sub-Saharan Africa at British Council, who will speak to us regarding workforce development, industry demand, and dignified work opportunities for young Nigerians. Thank you so much, Mr. Etom, for being here. Pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Just to confirm, we can't see your video. So
Okay,
please.
just a second. Okay.
Perfect. All right, perfect. Thank you very much. Next, we have Dr. Mofape Israel Adeboye, who is a global education specialist at World Bank Group, who will be bringing a perspective on private sector expectations, industry partnerships, and opportunities for supporting HI-led innovation. And finally, we are joined by Professor Timothy Aneke, who is the Vice Chancellor of Covenant University, who is represented here today by Professor Lanre Amodu, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Covenant University, who will be sharing the institutional perspective, drawing on Covenant University's experience in advancing innovation and entrepreneurship. Thank you all so much for joining us. We are excited to delve into this conversation, and we look forward to the amazing insights you're all about to share. Okay, all right. So, Mr. Etom, I'll be starting with you this morning. So, it goes without saying that an entrepreneurial mindset is critical for driving innovation. And we definitely saw in the reports that our findings show that most higher education institutions in Nigeria do have entrepreneurship embedded in their curriculum. But there seems to be a wide variation in what is actually delivered under that banner, ranging from innovation-led venture development all the way to basic vocational skills training. Now, the specific question would be drawing on your work across higher education institutions in sub-Saharan Africa. What separates the programs that genuinely prepare young people for the future of work and enterprise and from those that stop at just simply ticking the compliance box? What have you seen from your experience that is working in practice, and how can we adopt this at scale? Just to help us also maximize time, would love if you can keep your response within 2 minutes, and then would love that so much. Thank you so much. Mr. Etom, over to you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much to the organizers. Thank you for ICT for organizing this report launch. So I went through the report and I found it very, very insightful. So I'm going to be drawing on, leaning a whole lot on the findings as well from the report. So coming from a compliance perspective, as you highly said, 85% of the institutions that were consulted said, entrepreneurship is being taught, and so that talks about a compliance structure. But firstly, universities should move from teaching entrepreneurship to practicing entrepreneurship. So we have seen, entrepreneurship education either as a GST course, a general science course, or as a standalone course, different variations. Some have degree awarding, capabilities in entrepreneurship. Some have, diploma awarding capabilities, as it were. But what we see is, entrepreneurship should be seen basically for what it is, solving real life problems. And so it should move from just teaching entrepreneurship, as I said earlier, to practicing entrepreneurship. And so the report also highlights, a number of practical ways through which universities can move from just teaching. So if it is from a pedagogical perspective, you could improve it by, incorporating and also integrating experiential learning, as entrepreneurship is being taught, inculcate case studies into entrepreneurship education, introduce capstone project, and this came out strongly in the report as well. Introduce role playing and problem-based learning. And so these approaches will help enhance creativity. It would bring about enhanced problem solving, so students would know frameworks, how best to solve problems, and how to create ideas. And so secondly, universities should connect entrepreneurship education, which is already there, to not just as a course or as a module, but also introduce it as part of the ecosystem, as it were, connect entrepreneurship education to the wider entrepreneurship, ecosystem, as it were, by establishing those connections with innovation hubs, entrepreneurship centers, such that the outputs from the universities are very, very relevant to industry. And so that's very key. Another thing that came out strongly was around opportunity-driven innovation models. And so the current landscape, which also aligns closely with the report, is our innovation pipeline and models are focused more around employability, but we need to move from there towards an opportunity-driven model. And so stakeholders should look also in that perspective. And so how we can drive it at scale. So for me, three things are very vital. One, universities need to strengthen the entrepreneurship pedagogy, ensure that, lecturers, people who are teaching entrepreneurship, understand it, and are able to inculcate experiential learning, challenge-based learning, into how they teach and into how they are conducting entrepreneurship education. I say that it has to be fully about problem solving. And then the second thing is about embedding entrepreneurship across the entire student journey. Connecting very closely, with innovation hubs, put in place internships, projects and incubation opportunities. Lastly, universities need to measure outcomes rather than inputs. Instead of asking, is there an entrepreneurship course? Ask yourselves, how many startups have come out? How many prototypes? How many innovations have reached the market? How many students have we equipped, to solve, these real life challenges? So those are the key questions that universities need to look at. And rounding up, I'll close with this. The next frontier for higher education for universities is not just about education, but more around capabilities. So universities and institutions that will succeed are those that move from learning about entrepreneurship to creating value and are solving problems. I'll stop at that. I've not exceeded my 2 minutes timing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Etom. You were right at the edge. Well, we appreciate the insight said. Thank you so much. Okay, so Dr. Mofape, over to you. So we'd like to know that your expertise on this area. So the study showed that majority of public institutions rely primarily on government sources, specifically TET Fund, for research and innovation funding. Only a few seem to access international development partners and the private sector. So from a development finance perspective, what does a sustainable pathway out of that dependence on grants look like for our institutions? What sustainable financial models relevant to the Nigerian context, especially, are feasible for our Nigerian HAIs to adopt?
Thanks, Ma'am. So I'll try my best to stay within the timing and all protocols observed. Thank you for this opportunity. Just as you said as well, yes, there's a specific reliance on TED Fund for a lot of the capital at the moment. And this is actually not unique to Nigeria. It's a pattern that we see across higher education systems in a lot of regions as well. What I would like to start with first is the fact that TED Fund in itself, the funding is more of infrastructure capital. But just as the report states as well, we have to go beyond just looking at the building to actually looking at the pipeline that runs through it. I think even the report speaks to moving from ideas to actually just commercializing and going to market. And it's that middle ground that then we now start to have the disconnect where we're like, okay, what happens here and who's responsible? So currently where 80% of the funding comes from, we're talking about building physical structures, staff training, giving research infrastructure, but what is missing and what hasn't been necessarily addressed in a more robust manner is when we start to think of prototype development support, pre-seed funding, IP licensing, and very specifically as well when we think of commercialization of budgets and industry linkages as well. I think there was a lot of data in the report, rightly so, that really talks about where institutions are at the moment. So a lot of institutions still stay at that concept of an idea state, mainly because that is where the fund is available. So just thinking about that in context, what are the sustainable pathways that we need to activate? And when I speak to this, I tend to want to come from where higher education institutions as well need to be thinking. It's an ecosystem. I mean, Prof from NUC2 had mentioned that, look, this is collaborative. It's not just the regulators, it's also the higher education institutions. You have the international development firms, and everybody's talking about private sector funding, but how does that come to play? So I'm going to speak briefly about two main sources, and that's blended finance and relationship infrastructure. And relationship infrastructure in itself is a bit interesting. So I'll start with blended finance. And just for anyone maybe who is not quite familiar with that term, this is where private investors that want to, that's banks, VCs, venture capitalists, and all that, they tend to avoid certain market sectors, especially like education as a sector, where the risk-adjusted returns don't look attractive enough. So what am I saying? It's too risky to invest. A lot of the structures are not proven yet, or it takes too long to pay back. So they kind of shy away from investing in those sectors. So what blended finance does is it mixes public or donor philanthropic money to absorb some of that risk. And that shifts the risk return profile so that the private capital, which is there and available, is then willing to come alongside this and reduce, or we call it de-risking the investment. And two ways this comes out is, I'll give you two examples, not two ways, there are multiple ways, but two examples, quick examples. First, loss capital. So in this case, whether a TED fund, for instance, could, or a development partner can provide what we call first loss capital, which then is matched by private sector co-investment. What this does is some of the losses that could come across are then absorbed by these places rather than the private sector fund itself. So it's safer for private sector. Guarantees is also another way. But here's where the problem is when we're thinking of blended finance. I think maybe it's Mr. Offen that mentioned this as well. We have to be thinking outcome-linked finances. The simple thing is you cannot attract diversified capital or private sector capital if you don't have track record. What does that mean? We don't have data. So as higher education institutions, and it shows in the report and some of the work I've done as well, a lot of institutions don't track data. So we don't know where our graduates are. We don't collect relevant employability data. And sometimes where those data is collected, sometimes it's not the right data, or it's not collected consistently, or it's not used in decision making. So we don't know which programs are really, really meeting the outcomes that we need. And then when we think about entrepreneurship as well, we don't know venture survival rates. I think it was Mr. Offen that mentioned this as well, where he talked about collecting number of startups launched. We go beyond that as well. 5 years down the rate, what's the survival rate? How many of them were able to actually access funds? So we then know what the size of the challenge is and how many jobs were created. So there is a lot of data down the pipeline that needs to be collected. And this acts as signal to the private sector, because when you start to collect that data, then it makes it less risky for blended finance and private sector to come in as well. So it's still the de-risking thing. So that's a fix. It's an institutional fix, and it's a signal that needs to happen over the long term. Now, I mentioned the second one apart from blended finance, so I can round up quickly, is relationship capital. Now, for a lot of institutions, this actually exists. We're just not maximizing it. And it's mainly off balance sheet, but we need to be a bit more creative about what do we have in our hands at the moment. So what does this mean? Informal web of personal ties. So for instance, and I think even the report alluded to this, so faculty members would have industry contacts, some alumni might have goodwill, they come to our events, incubator events, and all that, and there's some funding, there's some mentorship. If you really have a great idea, there's some market access, but it's not formalized, it's not institutionalized. So if someone who is pushing it within an institution leaves the institution, it goes along with him. And this is sometimes where we lose a lot of this ability to convert relationship capital to institutional capital. And this is where a lot of the work that I do with universities come to play. What are the governance systems? Do we have the right processes in place? Because what this does really for us is helps us to build our internal processes. So that pipeline is being funded, where the IPs, do we actually have proper IPs, IP policies, where industry can actually come to play. The truth of the matter, because I've been on both sides of the fences, industry is willing to play, but they're not going to do the work for us. We have to come to the table with the right conversations. We have to come to the table with actionable events, and then we can engage. They're just not going to do the work. That's the reality, So we just need to it exists. We just need to know what to do. I had spoken about collecting the right data earlier. Having the right governance system is part of it. Alumni is a gold mine that we really do not adopt. They are pipeline into incubators and accelerators. We need to just stop focusing on just the endowment and ask them to come in as mentors. Usually we've found that when they come in, they even end up acting as informal angel investors because they see credible ventures coming out of their own institution. And that's a trust dynamic that outside investors don't even have. So we need to have those conversations, and we need to have an institutional package that really, really supports the systems. Because like I said, alumni themselves end up being valuable assets. And we have them on the table, but we do not utilize them, as well. So I am going to stop here. So, because I have a feeling I've gone beyond the 2 minutes. But again, what I said is blended finance, relationship capital. Relationship capital is internal. There's a lot we can derive from that. And just from building those relationship capital, we now start to send the right signals that start to attract the private investment. But there's still a part to play with even partners like Tech Fund that can absorb first loss. The World Bank as well, in terms of absorbing some of that funding with some of the things in place as well. So I will stop here.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Mofafe. I'm sure you can see that the reaction show that this is very timely information for our HAIs and for our ecosystem at large. Okay. So Professor Lara, over to you for the institutional perspective. So the reports as well highlight that innovation and entrepreneurship activities are present across Nigerian HIs, multiple actually, thanks to the Federal Ministry of Education and other government agencies that are responsible for regulating and overseeing the sector. However, it remains uneven and there's definitely room for improvement. From Covenant University's experience, what governance structures or leadership approaches have been most important in creating an institutional environment where innovation and entrepreneurship can thrive sustainably?
Thank you very much, and I observe our protocols and also acknowledge the distinguished panelists who have made such profound contributions already. So I represent the Vice Chancellor of Covenant University. So on the platform of Covenant University, I would say that the idea of entrepreneurship and innovation is more of an institutional vision. Covenant was founded in 2002, and one of the standards from the very beginning was that we will raise students who are not job seekers per se, but those who are job creators. So basically, that was part of the philosophy that built Covenant from the start. So from the very beginning, from the first year, we have entrepreneurial courses that span from 100 level all the way to PhD. So which means even our postgraduate students are mandated to take entrepreneurial courses. So I would respond to this in 3 dimensions. I would say that we have a structure, first of all, in the taught courses, because we have a Center for Entrepreneurial Studies that coordinates our entrepreneurial courses. And these courses have imbibed in them things like case studies, which I've had mentioned here today, biographical studies, where we study other entrepreneurs in Nigeria and outside. What were the experiences? Of course, we understand that you cannot replicate experiences, but you can apply principles, which we believe is very important that you are able to adapt to your specific context. So that is one of the structures that have been put together as far as the third course is concerned. Now, as far as research is concerned, we believe and we're driving product-based research. So which means that the research must not be abstract. They must address specific problems. So which means that consistently, when students are choosing their project topics, they are looking at problems that they want to solve. And the research in Covenant is largely funded by the university, and sincerely, I appreciate the board for that. Because, well, as private university, we are not eligible for TED fund. We are still looking in that direction, but still arguing about that. But private universities don't have access to TED fund, so which means that our researches are entirely funded by the university, and then of course grants, which is one of the things we drive seriously in international grants and all. So we look at problem-based research. And in Covenant University here, we have a patent office, so which means that we encourage a lot of things as far as product development are concerned, and they're able to process from that area. And of course, we have the aspect of practice. We have a startup lab where we have incubation. And I appreciate what Madam Mofokwe, pardon me, said a few minutes ago. The alumni base is one of the areas we cash in significantly, because Covenant have had some significant, should I say, good outcomes as far as startups are concerned. We have the likes of Piggyverse, Tribe, Greek, and quite a number of people who graduated from Covenant. So not only do they come back to train, and we have what we call Town and Gown, where we bring professionals from the industry to come and teach our students what is going on out there. How can you translate your ideas to product? And so our alumni are very active. Just a couple of weeks ago, on their own platform, they organized a program where current students and other graduates teach their ideas and they fund them among themselves. And these are part of the things that we are putting. But so that I don't extend too much, I would say that one of the significant things that we do in Covenant is give them a sense of problem solving. So at the end of the day, it is not only about the course you study, it's about how you can use the knowledge to solve a problem. So you can have someone who graduated as an engineer decide that I want to start a fashion business. We totally support it, because it is not, you're not restricted by what you do. If you can find a problem that you have the capacity to solve, you are encouraged to step in and solve it as creatively as you possibly can. So those are some of the structures that we have put in place to encourage them. So the entrepreneurial spirit, I think, is one of the most important governing principles, because it goes beyond the walls of the university. When we are done with our own work, when you get out there, you can regulate yourself by responding real time. So sometimes some of them are serial entrepreneurs. They can solve different problems as they see them. And then we also teach them about entrepreneurship. Not everybody will get to start a business anyway. But when you're within an organization, you can innovate, you can come up with ideas, you can push the boundaries of things, even within the organization in which you operate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Lanre. This is such an insightful session. I know this is a heavyweight in terms of the insights that are being shared. So just because of our time, we'll go again for one question each per panelist. Would appreciate if we can keep it very concise this time. I know we've already built the foundation of the meat of the matter in our previous answers as well. Okay. All right, Mr. Eton, back to you for your second question. So please confirm if everyone can hear me. Just want to make sure.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. All right. So a number of institutions in Nigeria have supports that connect researchers and students to industries, whether it be focus group interactions, engagement in research. And with our work over the years at ICT Africa, we've discovered that these connections typically rely on individual faculty relationships and networks, similar to what Dr. Mofokwe mentioned, rather than institutional systems. Many HAIs cite weak industry linkages as a barrier to research commercialization. So drawing on your work with African universities, what does a functioning university and industry relationship look like on a day-to-day basis? What is a practical thing that HAIs could put in place within the next year so we can look into the operationalization of this partnership with industry?
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. So, around university industry relationships, there have been different models around, operationalizing, university industry. So there has been the quadruple helix that brings together, industry, government, community, um, and the private sector to solve real life issues. There have also been, different other thoughts around that. But critically, especially around the quadruple helix model, there have been issues around operationalizing those kind of frameworks. And so it leaves universities to an extent stranded, making industry academia connection to be more around personal connection. So you could have a professor, who has had, who has engaged in a fellowship somewhere with industry somewhere, and is using his personal, connections and contacts and networks, to create that kind of synergy between industry, and classroom. And all those are all informal relationships, and there needs to be structured. And so university leaderships, VCs, needs to bring in some kind of structure into it. Okay, such that industry, does not, it's not dependent, on personal contact and connections randomly. And so from what we've seen so far is universities that have succeeded, especially across Africa, are universities that have built structure. We always talk about, first of all, having an entrepreneurship maturity framework or model, So universities that are just basically at that entrepreneurship education model where, entrepreneurship is being taught as a JST course, basically at the foundational level, and then those who have graduated more, they have entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurship, and they are more entrepreneurial, startups are coming out, they have strong connections with industry, innovation hubs, universities need to be graded. And so universities need to have a toolkit and framework through which they are able to, structure and gauge their entrepreneurial journey. And in terms of quick wins, I'm conscious of time. Universities, especially the leadership needs to take note of this, the VCs and the leadership needs to take note of this. First of all, establish a dedicated industry partnership and engagement office. There has to be an industry advisory board. We see that a whole lot in the, in UK universities, and some universities in Africa have that. And so the industry advisory board plays a very vital role in the technology transfer offices, they support that town and gown, I like the Covenant University approach where they also have, a town and gown meet where there's a handshake between industry and academia. So this dedicated industry partnership and engagement office, shouldn't be, relegated somewhere. It shouldn't be just one-sided project. It has to be part and parcel of the university structure, or they allocate somebody's special senior. Because they were talking about that entrepreneurship being a culture, not just a one-sided, uh, um, activity, as it were. It shouldn't be ad hoc. And so this post should be responsible for relationship management. And so the key things that they are going to focus on is they're not going to be focusing on organizing events, fairs, and so on. It goes beyond that. It has about to be more outcome focused. First of all, they'll create and maintain a database of industry partners. Okay, this dedicated unit will identify research and innovation opportunities within the ecosystem. They would match researchers and students with industry challenges. Okay, they would also be able to track partnership outcomes. And then this particular unit would also coordinate internships, mentorships, and collaborative projects. They would also ensure that relationship, that they are building that systemic structural relationship, between industry and academia. So quick wins running up in 20 seconds. So quick wins for universities in 1 year. I'll say each university should identify 10 strategic opportunities. And another that, first of all, within your vicinity, identify 10 strategic industry partners, areas where you have a comparative advantage. 10 strategic industry partners, and then develop a plan where you're going to engage them systematically over the next 12 months, either through applied research, student innovation challenges, which is very key. This is where the hackathons can come in, another, rapid, projects and activities that can empower and accelerate skills. Also generates joint problem solving initiatives. So the industry advisory board comes in there, and you need to also incorporate employability skills to also like critical thinking, problem solving, because someone else talked about not just entrepreneurship but intrapreneurship. So not just skills for entrepreneurship, but there are also skills for employability, as it were, critical thinking, communication, problem solving, research, those broad soft level skills will also come in there. And so if this happens, we would likely see significant improvement in research relevance, impactful research, where research is connected to real life issues, connected with industry. We'll see strong commercialization outcomes, and would see graduate employability also kicking there. And so closing, I would say
Thank you
the
so
real
much,
measure.
Mr. Esau.
Okay. Yeah,
My
okay,
apologies.
okay, thank
Thank you
you.
so much. We need
All
to
right.
wrap up. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the insight shared. It would also be great if the checklist of what you mentioned for the 1 year plan, if you can share that in the chat, so the HEIs in attendance can also have that as a checklist that they can go through within their teams and institutions. Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Over to you, Dr. Mofope. So none of the institutions we surveyed in the reports reported sustained access to sizable private capital within their incubation programs, even though the wider Nigerian technology ecosystem continues to attract significant venture investments. How can we create a win-win model where HEIs and innovators or researchers can attract investments for their innovations while also ensuring that they benefit financially from these innovations as we move from ideas to investable ventures? What role can development finance institutions play in this process?
Thank you. Okay, so I will not repeat everything I've said earlier. I feel a lot of what needs to be said has been covered. So I'm just going to highlight. And I would focus on starting with institutions themselves. I'm big on institutions. And it's really coming back to strengthening systems. One of the biggest is data. Everything needs to be evidence driven. So that's one of the first points. And to what Mr. Ofem has also said as well, and I'd mentioned earlier, everyone has said here, Professor Amodo has said, partnerships. He's talked about alumni partnerships. I mentioned it. I think industry partnerships are important. Mr. Umfem mentioned that where he talked about industry advisory boards. And what he was also saying was you need to be strategic about it. But we need to go beyond identifying. I think something I just want to just identify or just highlight very clearly as well is when we think about the partnerships and systematizing that, things like where you hand off from campus to market becomes very clear. So where university runs the first leg in terms of research, prototyping, early support, there's a baton pass as well, where it's now transferred to industry or capital. That cannot happen if you do not have established relationships with industry. So those handoffs actually happen. So we need to be intentional. That's what I'm saying. The final one in terms of the areas we need to look at as institutions as well is investable graduates. And I think we take it for granted. So it's not just about investable ideas, it's also about the graduates behind it because the team behind the innovation is important. If our student founders are not exposed to business fundamentals, communication, market validation, more dramatically beyond a brilliant prototype, and they don't have a go-to-market instinct, we have a problem. So, and we're not even measuring whether when they go to market, they're actually able to survive. So we do have a problem. So bridging that incubation to investment means really supporting them to be investor ready, enterprise literacy into the curriculum years before even the pitch deck exists. So it's a student life cycle move that needs to be at the curriculum level. And back to your point, So if we look at these three things, there's a lot of work to be done. And a lot of the work I'm focusing now is actually starting to see how we can help institutions. We're doing this in other spaces, but help institutions to start establishing those frameworks, those systems that would help them not just get the right support within the process, but also send the right signals for more investment coming in. Like I said, that's the work that I'm doing with systems as well. I'm working on a grant to work with universities, specifically in Nigeria, but even at the systems level, working with, the regulators like NUC as well. I do this in other spaces where we work with the CHE in South Africa to kind of establish enabling policies because the ecosystem has to be enabling as well. So yes, I think I will stop there. There's work being done in that. It's the messy work that needs to be done, but that's what we're also here for, where we try and help prepare the system for the funding when it then comes into play. So it's about de-risking. I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mokope. I know this conversation we can keep on going. I love
Yeah.
it, especially how your responses piggyback off Mr. Edson's. It just shows the continuity in the conversation that we're having. So the last question for this session, Professor Lanre. So as stated in the report, innovation within HEIs requires more than just infrastructure, like innovation hubs and entrepreneurship centers. It requires an institutional environment that enables students and faculty to develop, test, and scale ideas. From Covenant University's experience, particularly through the work of the Hebron Startup Lab, what has been the most important thing in creating an environment where innovation can move from an idea to a solution with real-world impact? What can leaders of other HEIs learn from this experience? And what institutional conditions are needed to replicate or adopt this success in other universities?
Thank you very much, And I think one of the most important things, and Dr. Musape and Mr. Fem, they've laid a very good foundation for this. It's important that students and any other person that is innovating should be free to come up with ideas. One of the most significant things is to understand that before you come up with a viable idea, you perhaps may have come up with about 10 ridiculous ideas. They are ridiculous because you think, come on, we can't possibly do this. But that is the process of ideating. You must go through all of those ones before you come to one that is significant. So you must create an environment where people don't feel that the ideas are stupid. Otherwise, when they come across a really sensible one, they would have given up on it. So it's creating a structure where ideas can consistently be pitched. So where you screen the ideas and you can help whoever is ideating to know what is viable and what is not. Put up a structure where they can go through it and then evaluate the ideas. So we constantly have what we call pitch contest, where students who have come up with wonderful ideas can sit before a panel that is made up of industry experts who they actually present to, and they can listen to the presentation and say, this is a brilliant idea. Okay, this is where you come short. You can do it better this way, and so on and so forth. We also deliberately expose them to a lot of competitions so that they don't just stay within the four walls of the university and think they're okay. They are able to take the ideas out into the industry, other competitions organized in places. They present it. They come back with feedback from industry and some other persons like that. So that is another significant thing that we do. So we ensure that they understand the processes that it takes to take an idea from the process of ideation into the level of entering the market. So consistently, we bring people to come and look at the ideas, evaluate them, and see what they are worth and how they can be deployed. So I would say that one of the significant things that I'll suggest that other startup labs and agencies can do is to create a platform where ideas can easily be presented without any, should I say self-consciousness? But I must also mention that safety is important because we don't want an environment where you share your idea and before you know it, somebody else has run with it. So it has to be a safe place where people know that any idea I share is protected and it is guaranteed. And if anything happens, it can be run with. Something else we also try to do is that we try to be the first users of our own products. So when students come up with ideas, we see how we can deploy it within the university for a proof of concept. So that if they go out to pitch it somewhere else and they ask, where have you used it before? They can say, we've done it at Covenant University, it works. So which means that before we adopt it, it must go through a lot of assessment and evaluation and all. For us to adopt it, we must trust it to some certain level. And that gives the student some level of confidence to know that they can do this somewhere else. So these are some of the things that we do and we believe they work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Larry. This is very insightful information that our institutions can take away to replicate and also achieve that success. So we've come to the end of the panel conversation. Mr. Etom, Dr. Mokope, Professor Larry, thank you so much. We have been greatly fed by the depth of insights you have all shared. And definitely we look forward to the actionable results from this. And we would all be very careful to track, as we have said, to make sure that these things are documented and also become learnings for other institutions as well. All right, thank you so much, everyone. I can see our interactions, comments. It's really good to know that the conversations so far have been beneficial. So please feel free to use the chat room to share any further insights. You have questions, clarifications, apologies, and we are happy to discuss further. So we would also open the floor to about 2 people who would like to speak regarding the discussion so far. Your reflections can focus on what stood out to you from the report and the findings as well. What do these findings mean for your organization, for your institution, or the role you play within the ecosystem? And thirdly, what practical action beyond what our amazing panelists have shared do you think stakeholders should prioritize next as well? So please feel free to share your thoughts, comments, either in the chat, or if you would like to speak, can raise your hand and then we can navigate accordingly. Additionally, we would also like to let you know, with the great work that ICT Africa we do over here, We do have the phase 2 of the HAI assignment by the African Development Bank coming up shortly. So please stay in touch as we roll out the plans for that with the structure, the plans, and a framework to help HAIs access sustainable finance to those that are eventually selected. So we're not just doing the research, we are doing the work to back up the research and lead us to actionable results as well. Okay, let me check the chat, see if we do have any insights as well. All right, thank you very much, Dr. Mokope, for sharing. Okay, anyone have any comments, insights, discussions? All right, I can see Dr. Esther's hand is up. Dr. Esther, you should be able to unmute. Please feel free to go ahead. Dr. Esther, are you able to unmute?
Yes, I
Okay,
have.
perfect. All right, thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be very brief because the voice is shaping. That's Dr. Mofope, then Professor Lanre, and Eton. You really said it and nailed it. So I want to say a huge thank you. But I think there's one thing we can do. It's proper orientation for the students coming in so that we catch them young. And we keep saying that the National Universities Commission has evolved from the skills acquisition to entrepreneurship specific. But besides that, I heard when one of the speakers said, we will still support if you have an idea that is not even related. But what we are pushing towards is entrepreneurship specific in the programs that you're studying. But besides, we'll still support. So what I want to say is that so far so good. This conversation can go on and on, but let's have critical and strengthen the orientation that we have for students when they are coming in. So we'll take it off from there. Thank you very much. And I want to end by saying that entrepreneurship is a science. It's concise and precise. And when I go to talk or have papers to present, I tell them there, we are tired and sick of what's. We want to see the workings. We want to see content. We want to also be able to commercialize. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing, Dr. Esther. And again, a massive applause to yourself and all the executives at the National Universities Commission. You have made the national framework of this success that we're all seeing possible. So we say a big thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, ma'am. Anyone else would like to give any thoughts, reflections, contributions? Feel free. Okay, Dr. Funke Adedeji. Amazing. Please go ahead. Please confirm if you're able to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good day, everyone. I'm Funke Adedeji from University of Pretoria in South Africa. This is a very good conversation. I really appreciate it a lot. The panels have really done justice. I just want to add that we should consider sustainable development goals when approaching problem solving. I don't know whether you understand what I'm trying to say, because this will enable funding. When you're looking at your problem solving from the angle of sustainable development goals, you would encourage more funding. And the students, when you are building curriculum for them, even from the young age, like one of the speakers just said about catching them young, we should let them understand the sustainable development goals. There are a lot of them. So if you are solving your problem, make sure that it is actually directed towards the sustainable development goal, and you are using it as like a baseline for you to solve a problem. So when you're looking at it from that angle, almost all students doesn't understand this sustainable development goal. That's what I found out. And I think it's a very good direction to start with, even from students in the secondary school up to young undergraduates, up to postgraduate students. So if we are looking at solving problem from that angle, it will also enhance funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adedeji, for sharing. I'm definitely aligned on that link between what we're doing and the SDG goals as well. Just to confirm before we go ahead, does anyone else have any insights they would like to share, whether in the chat or raising your hand? And thank you very much, Dr. Adedeji, for all the comments you shared within the chat. Those were very insightful and conversation starters for many interventions to come.
I raised my hand. Just
Apologies.
a
Go ahead.
quick response to Dr. Adedeji as well, just to make it just bringing it home when we talk about sustainable development goals. So it's not abstract, because we find a lot of universities, what can then happen through applied research. Sometimes you embed those objectives within some of the problems you're trying to solve. So right from the classroom, it's part of how you can include in pedagogy. Incubators as well, you allow them to engage in community where they're able to identify problems, build solutions around that, and they can actually embed that as well in terms of any of the goals as well that comes through. So they build a practice of it practically without it being like a separate objective. I just wanted to add that to the room because sometimes it can be like, oh, this is another layer. But it's not necessarily another layer. There's a practical way we can just include it in some of the things we're doing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mokope, for that added insight. Okay. Any other person would like to contribute? Reflections, contributions. Let me check the chat as well. Okay. All right. I will believe that we are all still digesting. Okay, we have Daniel Emmanuel. All right, please go ahead and then we'll move on right after you. Please confirm if you're able to unmute as well. Please, could we make Daniel Emmanuel a co-host so he could unmute?
Okay, good. Can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly now. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much. Just to say thank you so much to ICT for this fantastic session put together. It's been quite enlightening as regards the report on innovation and entrepreneurship in Nigerian universities. I probably would have missed out, but I just wanted to confirm. Will there be an opportunity for the report to be sent to participants after now?
Oh yes, definitely. So towards the end of this session, the link would be shared in this session, and would also follow up with an email sent to all attendees and registrants as well.
Oh, thank you. All right, thank you. Just that was what I wanted to confirm. All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for being part of the insightful conversation we've had so far. It has been a very multifaceted conversation, and that just points to the fact that the desired outcomes cannot be achieved by any institution alone. So we need our HEIs, we need the government institutions, we need our development finance institutions, private sector to all play a part so we can see the expected outcome become reality. And even more importantly, we position Nigerian youth for continued success, even beyond our own work and operations as well. So thank you once again to Dr. Esther for her insights and the keynote speech earlier. Thank you very much to Motaya Abraham and Ayomide and Mobology on the conversations regarding ICT Africa, the work we do, and this very detailed research report on the state of entrepreneurship in the ecosystem. Thank you very much to Mr. Etom, Dr. Mofope, and Professor Lanre for the insights you shared on how we can make sure that the report doesn't just remain a report, but actionable steps to the desired outcome we all require. And thank you very much for Dr. Funke, as well as Dr. Esther for the additional insights they shared as we went along. Okay. So as we come to the close of today's dialogue. I know we wish we could continue to have this, but definitely this is not the end. This is just a start to a fruitful journey ahead. So we'd like to thank again all our speakers, our partners, our participants for making this conversation very timely and practical. So to formally close this session and share the key takeaways, opportunities for collaboration, and the proposed next steps, I'll invite Isaiah Goike, our Government Relations and Partnerships Manager, to deliver the closing remarks. Isaiah, over to you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, everyone. I'm so excited for this conversation. There's really been great insight that has been shared. I want to first of all thank the National Universities Commission and Dr. Esther Mecca, who is here representing the ES. That's Professor Abdullahi Yusufu Ribadu. Thank you, Dr. Esther, for your sustained partnership. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for all the support to see that this research report came to a good completion. Also want to thank our speakers, Dr. Mofope. Thank you so much. Despite the urgent request, thank you so much. Also, Mr. Etom, thank you so much. Professor Lanre Amodu, thank you so much for your sustained partnership throughout. Also want to thank our distinguished HIs who are on this call, development partners, private sector here, and every other person who has made this event a success. Thank you so much. A few key things stand out for me from this conversation. The first one is that there is clear progress across our Nigerian HEIs. We can see that from all the insight that was shared from the work that Covenant University does. So there is a clear progress in innovation and entrepreneurship. The second thing is that there is a very strong opportunity for deeper collaboration across government, institution, development partners, and the HEIs, right? So those two key things stood out for me very well, and I want also to take note of that. And I think the next step from here would be that the findings from this report for all of us should lead to a clear practical action, should lead to stronger partnerships, and should also lead to a sustained engagement across all of the sectors from government and everyone. So thank you so much for making out the time. I know we are way past our 1 hour. Thank you so much. It's been good to see everyone engage up to this point. Thank you so much, and thank you again for being a part of this very important conversation. We would be in touch through the work that ICT Africa does. We would be in touch with everyone to sort of sustain this conversation so that we are not just speaking about it, but we are making deliberate effort to see that the recommendations from those reports come to light. Thank you so much, everyone, and I hand over to MM.
Thank you very much, Isaiah. We are coming to the end of the session. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined us today. Every single person that has played a part in this discussion. Would also want to give a special thank you to Tech Cabal Insights, our media partner for this official launch. Thank you for your collaboration, and we look forward to continued work with you as well. So as you can see on the screen, you can access the reports using the QR code on your screen. The link to this report would also be shared in the chat, and you would all be receiving emails with a direct link to the reports as well. So lastly, the launch of this report, again, is simply not a report, a publication. Like my colleague Isaiah mentioned, it's an opportunity to deepen the conversations and the collaboration that are already existing and leverage that relationship capital and move towards practical action on innovation and entrepreneurship within a Nigerian higher education. We appreciate your time, your perspectives, and your commitment to strengthen the ecosystem. We say a massive well done to every single stakeholder that is playing a part to strengthen the ongoing work in our ecosystem. We wish you a wonderful day ahead. and we look forward to continuing the conversation with you beyond today's session. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye, MM.
Thank you too for having us.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us. Have a lovely day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you
You
very
too.
much.
Thank
Have a
you so
wonderful
much.
day. Thank you.
Thank you.